take a look at what we've got right here. All right, so and I found this just after class, which I thought was perfect, right? The whole idea of pixie dust really did come from the Disney studios, and man, if it's not labor intensive or what, the whole idea of drawing hundreds and hundreds of little tiny dots that have to be painted perfectly by the ink and paint artists, oh my God, really is, it transcends art, it transcends animation. It's not that hard to do, but it just takes forever to do. And here we've got Tinkerbell in a nice little illustration. And remember that I had talked about having the trail lead behind wherever the orb is, and the orb would be Tinkerbell's feet. And here you've got an entire circle 8. And so whatever, you've got 500, 600, 800 little dots for every single frame. And you all should have seen this and said and thought to yourself, oh my goodness, if you were trying to do a pixie dust for this on twos even, this could take you weeks to do if you have that long of a trail. So I think I responded to Jinhee.
I added something else to a comment.
Oh, okay. Oh, is this a movie? Okay. Okay, this is a pretty good start. Let me get this out of my way. Because what I think you've got is a ribbon that's flowing behind.
Okay.
And once again, I think that just for the immediacy, I think that there was an actual way to draw in our classroom, but I don't routinely use it. Oh, let me refresh this. There's an odd thing about the way the school works here, that you can do a markup, but you have to click on it the right way. Let me see. No, see, it's this. I can do an audio recording. Yeah, I forgot. Let me just play this and pause it right about here, right about, let me go back. All right, so I'm gonna draw in Zoom. And again, I apologize because it's not the best, but it's okay. So remember, the one thing that we had talked about last week was the, and you should all seen this on the video, right? We're talking about magic. We're talking about the pixie dust dissipates after 10 or 12 frames. It spreads out. Talking about stylization. I don't know why I wrote ice cream. I forget why I wrote ice cream. But the main thing over here was the key. And I noticed that some of you had done that with your first submissions, that there is a 12 to 18 frame delay. So each one of the little dots of pixie dust that you draw lasts for about 10 to 18 frames. And if we look at that Tinkerbell thing, that's going to be lasting for 96 to 128 frames. So that is quite intensive, but they're falling. So remember that they're falling. And so Jinhee, you missed the idea of these little pixie dust pieces falling. So what you've got is you've got this little shape.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of acting like a ribbon, and it continues to follow behind it kind of as that same little shape. And I think that that's okay. But what you need is that this stuff has to fall. And so that's what creates the sparkle. It has
Gotcha.
to fall, and it has to spread out too. So if we look at just the little note right here about spreading out, right? That is, oops, hold on. That is the idea of, oops. So I think that they should spread. I remember last week I talked about even having a few little instances of pixie dust that precede it, that are just before it a little bit. So let me go to a different frame. Play it just quickly. So you can see you've got that main motion. You've got the little dust of the motion itself. But what you need to add now is that on the very next frame, each one of these has to fall. And so you've got 800 or 900 little dots here, and each one of those has to fall. And remember, the other rule was that none of them can be in the same place. No two dots can be in the same place. And so I think that what you can, there's a couple of things that you can do here. And one is that you can just add a few little sparkles, a few little pixie dusts on the outside, and make sure that those fall. So you go to the next frame, and the next frame, you make sure that those are falling. And it's good that they fall at a regular kind of rate. So you all kind of keep them in the same space, the same distance moving downwards, and that should work. The other thing that is, if this is looking too ribbon-like, if it's looking too much like a piece of fabric, right, this whole shape right here, then what we can do is, let me just check. Are you working in Toon Boom?
I did download like a trial version of it.
Okay. Be careful, because that's gonna
Expire, yeah.
in 30 days. So one thing that we can do is we can put a note on this, and we can make it semi-transparent. So I think you're off to a good start, but just make those notes. Try little dots on the outside, and we'll make this ribbon have a transparency on it. And you also might want to try a few little dots of pixie dust that are right before it.
I did put a transparency
I think that the timing is okay. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
for the ribbon, like I did put a transparency on it
Okay.
already. I can add more though.
Yeah, I think maybe a little more, because I don't
Okay.
think you need to erase anything. But for instance, one thing that is just really noticeable is that you see the end of the tail.
Mm,
Like when I play this, you
Yeah.
can see that it stays like this thing is looking like fabric, because it's always 2.5 inches long. And one way to get away from that is to make sure that you have the word dissipate, or breaking apart, or spreading out. That's going to be the key. So I don't think you have to erase anything. I think you just need to touch that up a little bit. And we were going to talk about exploding stars today, and you can add that to it too.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Isaiah. All right, so Jinhee, you see what's happening? He's broken apart the last pixie dust that are trailing behind. And I think you could do that too, just from your arc. You could have quite a bit of pixie dust falling behind it, trailing behind it, and it'll work. So Isaiah, I think this is working pretty well. You're going to want to go in now and adjust the orb to make it, you're just using that as a placeholder, but now you can even get rid of it, because right now everything has kind of got a really cool little effect to it. So just on one particular frame, we can talk about a couple of things. this isn't looking random enough. So make sure you go back in there and you put just a few little sparkles that are random. And one thing about the randomization is to literally go back and forth, go left and right and up and down. And that helps give you more of a random effect. Remember last week we talked about it would be really wrong of you to try to draw the pixie dust like this, right? That this is going to be like, what are you doing, man? And so that's what the pixie dust. And then I think that I forget what I called it. When we were using our brush, what did I call it when we were just like the cloud? Remember that's your first pass. I think that now you can go back in there to the cloud layer and add just a little bit more. Let me switch to green. Add just a little bit, maybe even on another layer, so that it's not quite so. I'm trying to make Zoom behave like Toon Boom. And so because I see just too much of a shape. The cloud should be mist, it should be steam, it should be a cloud. And so make sure that it doesn't look like a piece of cloth or a ribbon. And so this green here is just you expanding it just a little bit. When you get to the part of touching up the orb, one thing that you can really do on the orb here is put a transparency on it and make it like 80% transparent, because you don't need to kill it, but if it's 80% transparent, that might work. And you could put like a gradient fill in here. And we'll talk about that today too. And if I forget, remind me. It's actually a really easy thing to do. So you could put a radial gradient fill in here. And then you could put a transparency on it. You can use a blur on it. There's all kinds of fun things you can do with just this orb. And then again, I think that one thing that's going to be really nice here is adding just a few little magic pixie dusts that precede the orb. I mean, it's impossible. It's how can that possibly be? The orb hasn't gone into that space yet, but the magic is so intense that it is preceding it. And then like today, what we're going to talk about is exploding stars or other little shapes, right? And open circles. So this is good. It's good for a first pass. Now we're just going to keep improving it. I would like to see finals on this next week. Yeah, that's all looking good. It's all looking good. All right. Thank you, Isaiah. Jordan. And you've got the exploding stars already. So this is interesting. This is really good. I'm wondering about a couple of things. So are you there, Jordan?
Yeah, I'm right here.
My intuition is that this little exploding stars that are right behind the orb.
Yeah, the orb is just like a placeholder.
So right. So how did you go about doing this? Could you?
So what I did was I drew, I think like 8 or 9 different variations of exploding star animations, as well as the like falling orbs, like in making so they adjust size over time. Maybe like there may be like 7 to 8 frames. And then what I did was I have a background more in like working with like Unreal or Unity. So I was messing around with the node view, and I realized, I don't want to get carpal tunnel syndrome. So I was able to have it so I had a peg that attached to the path of the orb that you showed us in class.
Yep.
And then I made it so that I use particle emitters to have some gravity and make it kind of emulate that trail. So then I was going to have that as like the placeholder, and then there I can adjust it like and fine tune the drawings I initially had, and like with opacity, gradient passes, things like that. It
So
took a
I-
while to set up, but
Well,
I
no,
think-
and I can see it because it
Yeah.
does look procedural.
yeah,
And I think that
I was
what you've
thinking of
got is a
mixing
really
both.
good start.
Yeah,
But let me ask one other question. Are you in Toon Boom?
yeah, I'm using Harmony for this.
Okay,
yeah.
good. So let's talk about just keeping what you've got and a way to adjust it so that it looks more hand-drawn.
Yep.
And again, I think that this is important just for establishing a process. Because not everyone's going to do this. Did everyone understand what Jordan just said? He did a lot of this work in Unity, which is kind of the opposite of
But no,
what.
I did it all in Harmony. I meant to say I have a background in working with Unreal and
Oh, all right.
in Unity, so
Well,
like a
I think
similar
everything
process.
is looking pretty good. There's a pretty good density right here, but I think that what you need is a little cloud. Remember that little
Yeah,
that thing we started with? So
exactly. Yeah.
if you can get the little cloud, so that little green line is going to just represent the cloud. I also think that maybe just a few more random additions to out here. I think that a few bits out here that are trailing. I think that this is looking good. The sparkles are looking good, right? But I think that when you get to it, now we're going to do the exploding stars today. And I'll explain this because if you get this correctly, then it'll remove what we see as procedural pretty well.
Mhm.
So then we're going to put a transparency or a blur on your orb or with a radial gradient, right? And again, maybe a few little pixie dusts that are right before it. And then let's work on some color. So for this cloud thing, try a blue. And pick your color range, go from blue to purple on the exploding stars. I think that this blue could be fine here, but maybe drop the intensity down a little bit so that it's more of a light blue, and adjust the aesthetics with your transparency, blur, or radial gradient. And then try some other little shapes in here. Try a couple of little squiggles, spiral, something, little worms,
Okay.
just to punch it up a little bit, just to
Yeah.
make sure that it looks hand done.
Mhm.
All right, thank you, Jordan. You want to take a
Awesome, thank you.
screenshot of that?
Yep. All right, I got it. Thank you.
Got it? Madison.
Yep.
Okay, you've got a little octopus. Octopuses are trending right now
Are they?
on social media. I don't know why. I could take a couple guesses, but I could be completely wrong. But for some reason, octopuses are trending right now. And so I think what you've got is pretty good. It's a good start. Let's just talk about some ways to embellish it.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to delete anything or what have you.
All right.
But you do have this octopus,
Yeah.
so you want to get rid of that. And so let's say that you're, oops, I'm not drawing. All right, so what's happening is that it's looking like an octopus because you stay with this little distance right here. And one thing that you want to add to this is a variety of this shape. So this shape right here, like the very end of the tip of the tentacle, if you will, is going to look less like a tentacle if you just put some more pixie dust trailing behind it. So
Yeah.
that will fix it. So all of this. So for whatever your path is, make sure that you've got them falling over a series of 8 to 12 frames, or 8 to 12 drawings, which would be 16 to 24 frames. If you really want to address the idea of the octopus, then go back into the cloud and add a few brush strokes that are just more faint, maybe even on another layer, so that it breaks the distance apart. This distance. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you're adding just a few little brush strokes on every frame that make it look longer, so that it doesn't look like an octopus. But yeah, and then again, we'll talk about the exploding stars today. We'll talk about, and this is your orb here. You used a perfect circle, which is kind of unnatural. So you could
Alright,
you
yeah.
could turn this layer off,
Okay.
or you could just take the transparency like way down, and then put another orb on top of it that has more of an organic shape to it. You know, something you can think about what this magical orb looks like. There's this like weird thing that you can do in Flash where you can embed movies inside of each other. And I still haven't figured out a really clean way to do that in Toon Boom. But for instance, if you wanted to, you could think about the idea of just a hand-drawn orb that has kind of a like a 7-point star that's rotating, and that's it sends off the magical pixie dust from it, and the rotation here only needs to be 1, 2, 3, like 4 or 5 frames, and then you get that working as a little movie that loops, and then you take that little moving loop and you drag it along the arc in Flash, which you can do, and then it just keeps repeating. Here again, I'm just trying to remember if there's a really clean way to do that. I think that it's just the idea of getting more of a hand-drawn orb, like a few pixie dusts in front of it, the exploding stars, and make sure that this is trailing, and I think you should be okay. And then color. So, you know, now pull out your aesthetics. Now go in there and really think about whatever color palette that you want to use. So yeah, you're off to a good start. Let me take one more look at it, see if anything catches my eye here. I think your timing is working pretty good. So you've got a little variety there. Yeah, right there when that's hanging right there, that's pretty good. So yeah, I think that the one thing that you just want to concern yourself with is extending the duration at least twice, 2.5 times longer than what you've got, and then it won't look like an octopus.
Alright.
You know, one thing that might be fun is you could like not and it was yesterday and the day before where it was octopus, right? I don't think I'm going to see any octopus. Well, no, there were a bunch of octopus on Imgur, but there were also a bunch of elephants. Elephants were trending yesterday too. Yeah, I'm not. Oh, now it's all going to be black bears today. Oh, let's get off of that. Oh yeah, that's not going to trend. Hold on. You know, I clicked on a picture of Audrey Hepburn like 6 months ago on Pinterest, and it just will not let go of Audrey Hepburn. It's Audrey Hepburn 24 hours a day. Yeah, it doesn't look like octopuses are trending again today. At least for me. But Scotty Young and 2D special effects are. All right, so oops, hold on. So let me take one more look at it just to see. Well, no, what I was going to say is that you could save this as you've got it and copy the whole folder, the whole Toon Boom folder, and rename it. And so what might be fun is if at some point you could go back to this and actually make it an octopus.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? It's like you've done this. It might have been accidental, but now it might be fun to actually make it a pixie dust octopus. I don't know. It's your fault because you did it like that. All right, John.
Yeah, I didn't really have a test in there yet. Like having a little bit trouble time at learning this one.
Well,
So I just be able to establish the path, but it's not in the test.
okay, so you've got the little orb. Okay, you've got the orb, and Javon, I did this just a little differently this semester. I had everyone copy and paste the orb along the timing, and I can redo that for you right really quickly right here. And then I changed my process just a little bit too about using a brush to do a cloud behind the pixie dust instead of just drawing the pixie dust. But John,
yeah,
you are going to get yourself into so much trouble here. This arc right here is way too crazy. I mean, it's cool, but this is twice as much work as you really want to do for this. So what I would do if I were you, and I'm not because that would be painful.
I mean, in the original, it doesn't really look like that, but then I feel like I missed out
So do this.
the long
just
some
listen.
of the.
Listen
Yeah.
to me.
Okay.
So this part's good. And this part's good. But then just shoot over here and do a loop. And then stop right here and think about it. This is like 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 and 5. So if you take this off the stage right now, you're talking like 5 or 6 seconds, because all of this stuff here that it goes over like this, I mean, that's cool. And if you really want to do that, this is going to be like anywhere in the 17 to 18 second range. And you're going to be really mad. That's going to be a lot of work right there. So let's take this part and either get it off the page right here by just doing like a little like thing like that and getting it off the page. Or if you really want to, you can come up and like that. You can do like a little double loop right there. That's okay. But yeah, trying to go over to the left and then back to the right and then to the left and up again, that's going to be too much. It would be cool, but I would like you to try to be done with this by next week. So limit. And it's good that you only have your orb, that you haven't invested a lot of time in the brush part of it right now. Yeah, see that little back and forth right here? Let me replay this. So this little back and forth right here, right here, that's too much. So redo your arc and your orb with it, and you'll be happier. All right, I
hope
see.
so.
Okay, you got that?
Yeah,
Okay, Louis.
like-
uh,
it's just
What?
yeah, okay.
no, go ahead. What?
It's just that I had a little bit time, took too much time to learn how to work around with the program. So
Okay,
it just
that,
feel
that happens
weird.
too, I know. You're working with Toon Boom, right?
No rough animator.
Rough Animator. Well, no, I disagree with you. Rough Animator is really easy to use.
It's just like I'm not getting used to it yet. Like the way I use were mostly Photoshop, so sometimes it just get messy, and then I just started. I tried to fix thing again, and it was like adding a frame between this, and it was like, oh,
Yeah, I see what you mean. It is best to try to just keep adding instead of trying to repair things. Do you need help with Rough Animator?
uh,
Hopefully the answer is no.
I would say no at the moment, but
All right,
yeah,
all right. So take my notes. Do yourself a favor and simplify that arc right there. Okay,
okay.
all right, Louisa, am I saying that correctly, Louisa?
Yeah,
Okay,
correct.
okay. Okay, this is great. This is a great first start. Yeah, I like that right there. And so let me just check one thing here. Oh, oh yes, your animation. So there's a couple of suggestions for you that you might want to address. And that is that I like this, right? The idea that this orb is coming across the arc and it's doing its thing, you've got magic happening, and Disney did not invent magic. Magic has been around for thousands of years. But when it came to 2D animation, he really pushed his staff to take a look at what they were doing and go way above and beyond. And it was often the artists who inspired Disney who then re-inspired them and said, oh, this is a really cool thing that's happening right here. What if it lasted longer? What if this little orb just kind of went back and forth here just for a little bit longer? In the narrative, what happens is that the orb ends up becoming a character. It ends up telling more of a narrative. It becomes alive, it becomes sentient. So instead of this little pathway that this thing is just absent-mindedly going on, if you spend a little bit more time here, it's more intriguing. So my advice would be, see what happens if you go into the timeline. And so these are all your frames in Toon Boom, right? And stretch this out and just add a few more frames in here. I mean, it could be as few as 8 frames. Sorry, this is not drawing for me. Add like 8 frames down here. And you know how to do that in Toon Boom, right?
Yeah.
You know how to add frames. Okay. So and there's a whole bunch of different ways to do that. There's how familiar are you
Actually,
with Toon Boom?
I'm pretty good at it.
Okay, good. So you know how to do that. I don't have to go into some strange
Oh.
diatribe of how to add
Oh,
frames. Okay.
oh no,
So
it's pretty easy.
so either 8 to 12 more frames right here, and you might see just the difference. So now the idea is that if this pixie dust is about this big, your trail has got to be somewhere around here. And so go now and put the cloud. So now do your cloud and get the cloud working. And then so this would be the first thing is adding a little bit more time. The second thing would be the cloud. And then the third thing would be now doing your pixie dust. And I'll just put a P right there. And then the fourth thing is going to be stars. And then we can continue. But this is good. The general timing. The overall timing is really good. I think that's fine, but watch, right? Just a
Mhm.
little bit, 8 more frames, 12 more frames right there going back and forth. It shows that the little orb would be thinking. It would show that it's alive. Right?
Okay.
So yeah, you're on the right track. You got a nice little differentiation in speed. Okay, that's good. All right, let me clear that.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, you're welcome. And I think, oh, Janeska.
I had a hard time too, like John, since I've never really done this.
All right, but that looks good. And your game.
Yeah.
But that looks good. I mean, it's fine. So you know what to do, right?
Yeah.
You know what to do. So, and Javon, you know what to do. You know what to do. Okay. All right. So let's do this. All right. So once again, let's just replay what I did is nothing on this from last week. What I did is nothing. So let's just refresh because there's a bunch of things in here that I would like to talk about. I think that the similarity between working with the layers like this between Toon Boom and Rough Animators is similar. You can add as many layers in here as you want. And so I think it's important what we have is the background, which is this black. Just a general reminder that nothing will render in Toon Boom as a movie unless you have a color card. And again, I just clicked on this little box right here to make my background a color so that I know that that is just my black frame back there. I did a couple of different arcs. Remember, I drew that arc. I didn't like it. And I drew that arc, which was fine. And on that arc, I keep adding my little notes and my key over here. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about right now is exploding stars. In my color palette, I want to touch the palette and right click and make it swatches, because then it's easier to read. That we define this arc, and remember that like Louisa, the idea here is that I'm going to just draw this on the arc layer, is that as my little orb would come up to here, if I wanted to take the advice I just gave Louisa, would be is to hold this for 8 or 10 more drawings just in this little area right here, if I wanted to make that adjustment. Now, and remember that I drew my orb when we started drawing the orb just as a hand-drawn element because it just looks more organic. I gave myself 16 frames of black of nothing because I want the movie to start playing for 2 beats. And remember that in animation, a beat is 8 frames, 2 beats is 16 frames, and 3 beats is 24 frames. This works for all animation. Character animation, whether you're drawing in 2D or Maya, if you're animating in Softimage, or you can even animate in ZBrush. You know, anywhere you can animate. If you're at 24 FPS, then 24 frames is 3 beats. And I think that it's just a really good notion for you to how to break your animation down in terms of doable pieces. Okay, I drew my arc. I don't know what this is. I should Z out of that. I don't know what this is. All right. And I drew my arc and I did a couple versions and I gave everyone a visual acuity of saying this is just about how fast I want my arc to go or my orb to go, with a little bit of variation in timing. And so I've got it coming in at a pretty regular rate, about a 3/8 of an inch. Then it speeds up as it goes along this first arc, and it slows down a little bit right here. And again, I think it might be more interesting if I slowed it down a lot right there, and I just drew on the wrong layer. And then I just according to this, I have it kind of going off at a slower rate. I might want to change that before I got too involved in this and speed it up like really fast. I don't know. I think it looked okay just from my first pass. Oops. Okay, and so what we're doing here is I took my timeline out to about 10 seconds, which was 240 frames. And then the first thing that we did, so this right here, this dust one is just the dust that I drew with the brush. And because this is a different version of Harmony, I might have to redo the brush setting, which is fine. But the very first thing that I did was draw my orb. So that was this is the orb right here. I'm sorry. This is the orb right here, and that's moving all the way across. This is essential. This last frame right here is this guy right here. And it's on ones, but it's off the frame, so I don't need to extend this. If I did want to extend this, I could put this cursor right there in the empty frame and hit F5, which is a keyboard shortcut borrowed from Flash. That just extends the frame. And remember, I do want this to go off the screen because I'm going to have pixie dust falling from at least, so from that position right there, if the pixie dust from this little guy right here is falling, then it's probably going to look something like that. And I'm going to want pixie dust over here. And because it's close to the edge of the frame, in the dust and the orb, or dust 1 and dust 2, I might have 8 or 10 drawings of, or so of just the final pixie dust going off the screen. All right, so this is my orb. My orb is right here. Again, there was a delay and the timing was looking okay. All right, and then this dust layer right here is me, and let's just go redo this right now. So this is the dust. So what I did was I picked a brush, and again, this is something that you can't do in Rough Animator very cleanly. And it looks like they've added a bunch of new brushes in here. Let's just pick, yeah, I think I picked this dusty pastel brush. And my recommendation for a lot of things that you do as a digital artist are keep your file names really clean, keep your layer names really clean. In this instance right here, I want my dust_1 layer to have the same layer of the color I'm using on it. So if I use a dusty pastel brush, I'm going to use the dust 1 for layer dust 1. And the size of the brush, I think let's redo that just a little bit. That's 84. I don't remember what my settings were. Does anybody remember my settings last week? You know what? I don't like this brush. Let's use a soft pastel. No, I don't like that either. Hold on.
I think you used the brush on cloth brush.
Gouache?
Brush on cloth.
Okay, that works. And I have it's set at 66. I think I remember 88, right? Something like that. All right, so that's working. All right, so what I want to do is I want to finish this. And these are already locked in here now, so all I have to do is hit G on the keyboard. In Toon Boom, F is going backwards by a keyframe, and G goes forward. And one of the first times I lectured about this, I kept saying F and G key, the F and G key, and everyone was laughing, and it took me about 4 minutes to figure out what they were laughing at when I was actually saying the F and G key, man. Yeah, stupid joke, I know. All right, so what I want to do is I want to go through this, and I want to see if I need to add anything. And I think that what I would like to do, and remember, this is just a reiteration, just a little bit of what we did last week. But I think that what I'd like to do is just give the idea of this falling. So I'm just going to add a little bit behind. Oh, and I want to turn my onion skin on, because I want just a little bit of trail out here, just a little bit. And I'm just doing a little soft brush. Next frame, let this fall down here. Next frame, let this fall. And it's okay if it breaks apart like this. So what I'm getting is I'm lengthening the amount to the frames that the pixie dust is trailing. I'm going to go backwards now and make sure that I've got, I don't have too many gaps. I'm going forward now, going forward. Okay, going forward, forward, okay, forwards, forwards. Okay, so I want this to fall just a little bit. This to fall just a little bit. Okay. This is fine. That's fine. Good. Fine. Good. This trail. Fine. That's fine. Okay, so I'm just extending it. I'm gonna go backwards. I want this to fall right here. This is missing. This was missing. So this little arc right here, when the orb was coming through this little bottom arc right here, that's falling. So it's falling here. I'm trailing it down, falling, falling. So now that's fine. So now I want this to trail just a little bit and off the screen. Okay. Okay. Oh, so we stopped right here. So this does not have pixie dust on it. So now I'm looking at two things at once. I'm looking at my stage, and I'm also looking at the space on the dust layer. Because if you remember, this is a really fast way to work in Toon Boom, is that I go, now I'm going to switch from going to the F and G keys. Now I'm going to the greater than sign and just going out 2 frames. And now as soon as I draw that, it fills in the missing frame there. And now I could just finish my little orb bit. And you can see that once it fills in, it gives me the onion skin that was not prevalent. Okay. Again, this stuff is falling. So this is falling down, and then this falls down out in the timeline. This falls straight down. That's off. This falls straight down. So this is, and then this is here. All right, and remember that the reason why there's a little blip, and I don't know how this reads over Zoom, but the reason that there's a little blip right there, and actually a little bit more of a blip, is because we do have a transparency node on this layer. And it just takes like a little moment for it to, oops, hold on a second. This is a good thing. I noticed that this frame was incorrect right here. So right here, I'm just going to hit the minus key on the keyboard, which takes away a frame. This needs to be increased. So I'm going to hit the plus sign on the keyboard. This frame right here is the one we're working on. And the plus sign on the keyboard is all the way off on the right side of my keyboard. And I don't remember where the keyboard shortcut for that is. I'm not going to look for it. Just remember that what I was doing here is I want this to all be on 2s. So if I want to increase the frame rate right here, or the frame duration, I can just hit the plus sign on the keyboard, right? Or I can hit the minus sign on the keyboard to to adjust my timing. So in this one, I could hit plus, but what I'm doing here is I'm drawing and then going out 1 frame, 2 frames. And then as soon as I draw, it fills in that missing frame. And there's a similar function to that in the Rough Animator application. All right, so out, and just let me finish this little part right here. And again, this is just a review. So what we're doing is we're following a traditional 2D special effect animators process of drawing. Oops, I think I went too far. Hold on. So this part, this little cluster is falling. This is going to fall and go away. This is falling. And I want just a little bit right there. And we might want to go backwards and fill in this little part, this little part. Right here, right there. All right. A couple more frames here. And the idea of doing this is making sure, so right now I'm just going to stop right here on frame 100. Let's save this. Let's take a look at what this looks like. Just to make sure I haven't done anything horribly wrong. It looks okay right there. Let me turn the arc layer off and watch it one more time. Okay, so I think that's working pretty good. What I'd like to do is have you all take a break, take 15 minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually work in the background just a little bit. And I'm going to finish this little cloud thing here. And then remember that this dust layer right here, it should say pixie dust. So if I turn this off, and so not to be confusing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to pixie. I'm going to put _1. And then what I'm going to do is I remember that it's set. Oh, hold on a second. It didn't take that. Pixie _1. And then it said dust. I forget what color that I was using. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to eyedropper this color right here. And it says dust 2. So I'm going to change this to pixie 1 _1 so that they match. And then I don't know if I'm going to have the time to go through and do the pixie dust right now in the demo, because I want to get to the stars and how to finish this up. So take 15 minutes, take a 15-minute break, come back about 10:25 or so, and I'll show you how to do the pixie dust. Go ahead and take a break, everybody. All right, so let me explain what I did in just those minutes while I was working. All right, so what I had done was I had gone in and painted my orb. And so I'm zooming in with the middle mouse key, space bar. And so what I'm looking at right now, that's kind of a cool looking orb. And so I did a couple things with it. I wanted to fill it. So I used the regular paint function and I went to my orb layer and it's already keyed out. So all, and I could have done this when I was making the orb, when I made it once and when we were copying and pasted it. So I wouldn't have had to done this, but this only took a minute. What I wanted to do is make sure that orb was moving in the right direction first. So I just drew it, copy and pasted it along the arc, bam, we were done. And so I created a color. And remember that whenever you create a new color, like if I just do this right now and say add color, it's going to give me a copy of the color that I had selected. So I had to go in and tweak it just a little bit. This orb color in the swatch mode, the only way you can get to this swatch is to see it is to double click on the blue line. And so I knew that I wanted some sort of green. And when I pasted it and I looked at it, I'm like, oh my God, it was way too bright. Just like, it's killing me. So I chose gradient from the selection. I gave it a little bit of an alpha. And then I took this slider right here, which was default like way out over here. And I pushed it more towards the left, which gave me a little hot greens center right there. And again, this these settings matter whatever it looks like on the stage. So just kind of zoom in and look at it and kind of see where you're going, and remember that when I change this, it changes it for the instance of the color everywhere on the stage. So everywhere I've used this color, anywhere in this Toon Boom folder on this project, it changes it everywhere I used it. It's brilliant. Remember last week I said that this color palette is strong enough that it's going to generate world peace because it's so cool. All right, so once I got that set in my brush tool, I just zoomed and clicked and went all through it. And then I looked at it because I wanted to make sure it was looking, oh, hold on. I wanted to make sure it was looking okay. So remember that one thing that you can do here is Shift M to get back to the full stage. And then I always like to know where I am, so I zoom out just a little bit. You can either do that with the middle mouse or the 1 and 2 keys on the keyboard, as long as your stage is selected with the red outline. So let me show you what that orb looks like now. So now it's filled and you can see that little green. It feels pretty good right there. This is going out to the full 10 seconds. All right, so the next thing I did was I worked on the pixie dust just a little bit. So over these few frames, oops, hold on. Over these first few frames, what I did is I wanted to make sure that I've got the right idea, that I want to make sure that pixie dust is in the right place. And so I stopped, I stopped about right here because I know that now this is going to be the bulk of the work. This is going to take a bunch of time to get all of these little pixie dust, but I want to make sure that they're going to be in the right place and I'm doing it correctly before I get into trouble. All right, so then I created a star layer. You could see that in the little preview that I showed you. Now there's just a couple of tricks to doing a star, and the star is that I'm going to use a pencil. I'm going to pick a color that is the star color, and I picked a star layer just so that I can always tweak this. I don't want to put the stars on the pixie dust layer because if I want to go in and put a node on it, I can do that. And I don't think you need to be crazy about putting a folder in here and having all the a folder filled with star layers. I think just one layer is fine all by itself. But the trick to a star is that somewhere matching the keyframe, you draw a 5-point star. And so remember that in our arc layer, we picked this one right here. And there's a couple of, I picked this one right here. This one was a 6-point star, but right here, you can also have a 5-point star. And so you just get into the rhythm of starting from the center and going out so that the end of the star has a sharper point to it. So if I zoom in on this, let me Z back out of this and show you. So if I imagine that there's a point right in the middle, and I start here and I just use the pressure sensitivity, and I'm trying to get a sharper end on the end of it. And I'm doing this slowly just because I want to make that demo. So just a sharper star. If I wanted to tweak this, I bumped my setting from 5 up to 7. And at 5, I can get a sharper line right there. All right, so back on the stage. I'm using the 1 key on the keyboard. I'm turning off my arc. All right, so the trick is first drawing your star. And I think this looks a little funky, but that's okay. I mean, it looks a little organic. It's not completely geometric. And I'm glad that I drew these little guys off the stage over here because those should have been on the arc layer. And if I wanted to keep those, I could just select these without hitting the mouse, and I can copy them and delete them, and I can paste them on the arc layer. The arc layer is turned off. Let me make sure they're okay. They're there. All right. So for the star, I drew a star, the 5-point star, and then on the next keyframe, I had that star move downwards and to the left just a little bit. And I didn't copy and paste it, I just drew a new one. And it did not become bigger right away. It's just kind of falling a little bit. But then on this keyframe, it does get bigger. And on this, so the open space gets bigger. And then on this one, it stops moving downwards. It stops falling, because now it's just exploding. And so from the red going into the frame I'm on right now, it's moving outwards. And on this one, it's just moving outwards. You see that? Now it's in a linear progression. So, and on this one, it's going outwards. If I wanted to do one more, I could just say, all right, let's have this disappear. So I'm just going to do a tiny little blip out here. And so this is in the course of 7 drawings on 2s, which is 14 frames. And that's my first little star right there. So let's take a look at just that, how that first star looks. And remember that there's going to be a lot of other stuff going on here. There's going to be a lot of other pixie dust in here and whatever we choose to put in there. But let's just see if we can, if our eyes can catch just that first star that we did. So let's just take a look. All right, see it? Let's take a look one more time. All right, I think it's moving just a little too slowly. Just, you know, that's one thing that I wanted to impress upon all of you is the idea of pretending someone else did this. Pretending that one of your classmates did this and you're looking at this with a very critical eye. You say, you know, it's moving just a little too slowly. So instead of this being on 2s, let's take it and just drop all of it to 1s. So I'm going to take my key and put it here, and I'm going to use the minus key on the keyboard, and I'm going to hit minus, which takes away a frame, and I'm watching it in the timeline. Then I'm going to go to the next keyframe, and I'm going to say, oh, I missed this frame right here. So now I'm going to use the left arrow on the keyboard. I'm sorry, the less than sign, and hit minus. Then I'm going to hit the greater than sign, minus. Greater than sign, oops, hold on. Move to the next frame, minus. Move to the next frame, minus. Move to the next frame, minus. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 frames on ones. See that, everyone? And it doesn't matter that they match these keyframes up here. It doesn't matter. What we want is the timing of that star. So now let's look at that star very closely. All right, so now it's moving a little too fast. Let's look at it one more time. I think it's moving just a little too fast. All right, so what do we do? Let's think about what's happening. It's a piece of pixie dust that explodes, right? Louisa, just nod. Javon, just nod. Jinhee, nod. Just say, yes, Mr. Billy, you're correct. So when you have an explosion, I can't see myself in the monitor. I'm going to change this. Hold on. So when you see something exploding in 2D animation, it happens really fast. And then it slows down a little bit. So let's use that notion here. And let's take the first 2 frames and put a frame back on the first 2, just the first 2. And we'll save and we'll look at this. All right, so that looks a little better. Think about it. What did you just see? It did slow it down just a little bit. With one more time. Okay, let's add one more frame right here. Save it, play. All right, so that looks okay. So we got 3 frames on 2s and 4 frames on 1s. Oh, by the way, I don't know if anyone knew this, but if you can see, this is unique to Toon Boom, that when you have your little enable layer button over here, it's a set of eyes. And when you move your cursor around, the eyes look at your cursor. Can you see that, everyone? It's like, I got used to it over the years of working in Toon Boom, but I forgot to mention that it's like one of a tiny little goofy thing that the engineers put in there. All right, so let's do another one. Right now on the star layer, we have this one on frame 36 going all the way to frame 45. Now, I don't think that you need too many of these little stars. I think that maybe 10 of them, 10 to 20 throughout the entire shot here. But we do have this timing to think about here. So if we're going to 3 frames on 2s and 4 frames on 1s, then we have to be careful, because if we start drawing on the star layer, like if we wanted a new star to start right here, then we would have a competition between this drawing right here wanting to be on 2s, but this drawing right here that we've already locked in the timing already on 1s. And then you don't want to railroad things. You don't want to do railroad ties. So let's just go out into time just a little bit. Let's just say right here. Let's go backwards just a little bit. Let's just put this one right there. Okay, this is good. So once again, let's review pencil, stars, and we don't have our pixie dust yet, so that's okay. But let's do a 6-point star. And let's do this one just a little differently. So let's do a version like this. Oops, hold on. I drew on the layer. And so what I wanted to do, and the reason why I stopped in this at this particular point is I wanted to just take a look at adding a star right here on this particular frame, or this frame, because it matches the timing of frame number 48. And so I'm gonna say, okay, good, I'm going to do a 6-point star with a dot in the middle of it. And if I go like this and I just draw one tiny little mark, it fills in these keyframes right here between that last one, and you don't want this. So one thing that you want to pay particular attention to is being able to see what you're drawing on the stage and making sure that this isn't filling in down here. So one thing that you can do is you can use this frame right here. This is say create an empty drawing. This little button right here. And then when you do that, you say, okay, now I want a star right here. This is going to be a 6-point star. So that means that the tendrils of the star are opposite of each other. There's a little dot in the middle, like that. And then there are open frames here. So now use the greater than sign on your keyboard to go 2 frames out, and this one's going to fall a little bit. So you're just going to take the dot and put it here. Just drop it down just a little bit. It's falling. And then just right over it. This is falling. And it's not really, you can expand the explosion of the star just a little bit. But what's happening really is that you want your audience to read. So just drop this down just a little bit. You could copy and paste this if you want, but it's faster to just draw it, and it's a little bit more organic to draw it. All right, so remember 3 frames on 2. So now we're going to go 2 frames out, and now the star is going to explode. So now it stops, and so now we get the lines to continue out, and I want to make it so it's coming right from the center, and they're expanding. This dot can disappear now. Now I'm on 1, so now I go just 1 frame out, and now it can move faster. One frame out, let it move really fast. So now I'm just kind of taking it right from the end of that little tendril. And I want 1 more frame. Now it just gets smaller. So now the magic is gone. The little explosion is gone. We have 3 and 4. Let's save it. Let's go backwards and just, we're looking at just the 2 exploding stars. All right, so that looks good. So this timing looks good right here, and you are welcome to use that 3 and 4. But I'm also encouraging you to play around with that timing. So now remember that if you wanted a star to be right in the middle of these 2, you would probably just want to say, you know what, let's make a new layer, drawing, and then call it stars 2, add and close. And just because it's got its own layer, take the stars layer here and say new star color, and then just double click and just say stars 2 underscore 2. And then change it a little bit. Let's make this one a little hotter. And let's go, and now let's start one right here. All right, so, and we're gonna make this one a little smaller. So this one's gonna be a little less intense, and it's gonna start right here. So, and this one is gonna be a 3-point star. So let's just try that one. So we start here. This is just on 60-degree angles, and it's the same kind of deal. I match the keyframe to start with, greater than sign 2 frames out, let it fall. And so let it fall just a little bit, and it doesn't grow very much. 2 frames out, it falls just a little bit, and I could increase the onion skin just a little bit so I can make sure that this timing is fairly regular. Oops, hold on, I did something wrong. Yeah, this way. Okay, and now 2 frames out, now we're on 1s. And so now this grows. One frame out, it grows faster. This one's just a little different. 1 frame out. Now I'm putting a little bit more space between the last frame, 1 frame out. We're gonna go 1 more frame on this one and just kind of blip this one and blip this one, but this one's gonna disappear. Save it. So now we're gonna see what that looks like. We've got 3 exploding stars, but the timings are just a little bit varied. Okay, so let's take a look. So I'm not quite convinced about this one right here. So there's a couple of things we can do. we're gonna zoom out from this and just look at it in context. All right, so yeah, I think that this one's okay. I like this little, the way it's behaving right there. Let's look at it one more time. So what I'm looking at is I'm studying the first one I did, the second one, and the third one. And as an animator, you're kind of studying all those frames. I like that. I like that differentiation there. So let's go back and put one right here, and in the same kind of feel. So if you wanted to keep order and you're in your own logic, then you could say all your stars too are 3 and 4, but they're 3-point stars. And oops, I'm sorry. And your using 3-point stars with the stars 2 color here. All right, so let's just do one more. This one's gonna be really small. It's gonna come right here. All right, and I have my onion skin on. So remember, go 2 frames out. And remember, I did backwards here. So did anyone notice that? So when I put this keyframe in and I just started drawing here, it didn't fill in all these keyframes. So you could do that if you wanted to. If you wanted to go backwards without using the use empty drawing key, you could do that. It's kind of a strange way of working, but that's okay. On this one, what we're going to do on this one, we're actually going to create a little center. So there's a little dot in the center, and I'm going to go 2 frames out. And so now I'm going to take that dot and move the dot out down just a little bit. And again, we're going to follow our procedure. It's falling just a little bit right here, 2 frames out. It's going to fall just a little bit, put the dot, keep the angles the same. You're looking at 60-degree angles, go 2 frames out. Now we're on 1s. So now it stops moving downward. So the dot just let's move it just a tiny little bit. And now this part, these little tendrils start moving outwards. 1 frame. And I'm going to just double check something before I look at it. So it's covered up. Hold on one second. We are at 250%. So I'm zoomed in here twice. Oops, sorry. Twice what I would be. So on this one, what I'm drawing is actually 2 times bigger than what I'm going to see. And so if I just draw these things like this really subtly, and I actually even put 1 more frame in here where I just see like 1 little blip and like 1 little blip out here. We're at 250%. So if I go backwards and say, let's take a look at this. Oops, hold on. Toon Boom, wake up. There we go. So I'm going to save this and we're going to play it. All right, so that looks good to me. Let's look at it at 100%. Stop, stop, stop. And so we're going to look at this a little more regularly. Let's hit play. All right, so that one's good. It's nice and subtle, right? All right, so now let's take another one on this layer here. And now let's do a spinning exploding star. It's the same timing as 3 by 4, but now we're gonna, so on this layer, we're on the stars layer. So I'll use the stars color. We're gonna zoom in. And so from this position here, we're gonna use let's use a 4-point star. So I'm just gonna start with this little dot right here and it fills it in. Oh, I made a mistake. Command Z, create empty drawing, take the little dot, and then go 2 frames out, drop it down just a little bit, 2 frames out, drop it down just a little bit. Go hold it for 1 frame. So I'm just going to hold that for 1 frame by hitting plus sign on the keyboard here. So now I said 4-point star, which is kind of a little bit too geometrical. That's fine. Oh, let's just use it. So what I want is this one, and it opposes it. That's my first frame. And then I'm going to go G to the next keyframe. You have to have your onion skin on now. So now I'm going to rotate this so that this is going to come down about 20 degrees and just go right from the center. And then G to the next keyframe. So this is going to, we start with, oh, hold on. We start with 1, and then we go across, and then we make sure that it's a geometrical pattern. And I think we probably need 1 more. So let's drop this one down just a little bit. And let's start with this one, which is going to come to about right here, and then oppose. And I am spreading this out just a little bit. So now we'll go on 1. So go 2 frames out. And now what we're going to do is we're going to continue it spinning. So this one, we can bring the dot down just a little bit right here. But we're gonna continue to spin it just a little bit, but now it's actually starting its explosion. Just a little bit. It's subtle. 1 frame out, drop down the center just a tiny bit, or keep it right where it is. And now this is up to you. So you can test this, and you could say, I'm going to explode this without the spin. So let's try that. Because actually what's happening right now is that the explosion has already gotten rid of the mass, if you want to think about it. So let's just take a moment and explode this one. And 1 frame out. So now I want a little gap between each of the last particle frames. The next one, 1 frame out. Make the gap a little bit more. And 1 more. And it dissipates. So now it just kind of goes away. So this one is a little bit more involved than the other ones. So let's zoom out. And so I'll leave it right in the middle because I want to see what that one looks like. Save your file, go back to the beginning, play. All right, so it's not spinning enough. See that? So let's just play from right here. It is spinning, but it's not spinning enough. So what we can do is we can just delete this and let's spin them even when they're moving away from the center. All right, so let's go. I'm going to take my erasing tool and I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to go 1 frame backwards, and I'm going to erase this one. 2 frames forward, erase this. And I think that one of the things that I like to do is show you all how to make your mistakes, because then it's easier to show you how to fix them. And one of the reasons for doing it this is I liked the timing, but I didn't like the spin. It wasn't spinning enough. When I do it this way, I've already got keyframes in position, so I don't have to do anything else except use my G key to go forwards. And I'm going to go back. I am in my pencil. I'm on the right color. So this one's spinning. This one is not spinning. So let's just take it. Let's zoom in on it. So let's drop it down a little bit and spin it. So I'm going to take this one first. This is the one I can see. So I'm going to drop it down. It's going to grow a little bit. A second. So this one is going to be right here. It's going to grow a little bit. G key. I'm going to drop it down just a little bit, and I'm going to grow it. And it's moving away from the center just a little bit. And I'm going to go to the next keyframe, drop it down just a little bit. Start with 1. It's going to grow a little bit more. And now what I'm thinking is that the magic is staying really close to the center. So I'm not increasing the gap between the center too much, but I'm getting the magic to grow. And as I do this, you can see the frames before. So I can see before. I can see that it's going to work a little better. Hold on. So now I'm going to increase the distance between the magic and the center just a little bit. And again, we are at about 400%. And that's important because you want to make sure that you're aware. So, and I think I'm going to redraw this one just because I want to increase that distance just a little bit. All right, let's go to the next keyframe. Drop it down just a little bit. Let's start with this one again. And this distance is going to increase. Then we have one more keyframe locked. Drop it down a little bit. Start with this one again. That distance from the center is increasing just a little bit more. All right, so now we're on new frame. So now use your greater than sign to go to the next keyframe. Drop this down a little bit. And now the distance is increasing a lot. And so now it stopped spinning. So now I'm gonna think about this for a second. What did I do wrong? This one's in the wrong place. So I'm gonna Z this out. So this is the last frame. So I want it to be like this. And I want it to be like this. And so this is the geometry is just a little weird, but that's okay. Oops, hold on. All right, so now, and my intuition is that this is going to have to be on 2s right here, that this is going to have to be on 2s. Let's go 1 frame forward, drop it down just a little bit. And let's just draw this one. And test our timing before we, oops, let me move this down just a little bit. Test our timing to see if what we're doing is working. All right, save, go backwards, play. There we go. And so we stop and look at, just think about what you just saw. It's spinning slowly and then it speeds up a little bit. So we use the same kind of timing theory here, but let's see if we like that timing. So what we did is 4 frames on 2s, 5 frame, 1, 2, 3, 4 frames on 2s, and the rest were on 1s. Let's take this one and add a frame, and this one and add a frame. So we added 2 more frames to our 5th and 6th drawing. So just to remember, let's take a look at the timing. I think that's okay. So, and it's good to have a variety of timings in here. Let's look at this in context. So I think that's great. I think it works. Let's look at it one more time. All right, and I think that we gave it the star color. If you wanted to use a different color right here, you could paint it something different. You could just say, this is a special star, and all your spinning stars, you could say, I want to create a Where did it go? Oh, it's right here. So this right here is spinning SP star, SP underscore star, and give it some different kind of color. And then on this one, use your paint, repaint. Right? So now it's a different paintbrush. Zoom in on this and just paint it. And I'm going to use my stylus actually instead of my mouse. And remember that this is vector. So if I hit my K key on the keyboard, it's going to show me all the vectors. K key is a keyboard shortcut for vectors. G key, paint. And now I'm going to try something that is kind of something intuitive. I'm going to go G key 1 frame out, and I'm going to circle it. See what I did? This is the vector part of it. So I'm just going to go G key, circle it. G key, circle it. G key, circle it. One more. It's vector. So it's just that fast. You can't do this in any other application. All right, so we made that blue. Let's take a look at what it looks like in context. Save this, play it. I like it. It's working really well. So that's your stars right there. On the stars layer, let's add a little glow. So on this stars layer right here, let us go, let's put our color palette away. So let's go back to the node library. Let's go to the node view, and it's already still expanded from what we had done last week. So we've got stars 2. I'm going to pull this out here. And by the way, I said this before, but the middle mouse on the keyboard is zoom. Middle mouse on your mouse is zoom for this too. And it really doesn't matter where these things last or land. And my instructor, when I was learning Toon Boom, he just hated when I do this. He just hated me for moving things around manually like this. But I don't care. I told him that I needed to know where things were. And so for me, it was good practice just to keep things organized. So in other words, this dust right here is crossing over these 2 pixie dusts. So I'm just going to move these and move the stars over. And I'm going to move pixie dust 1 over. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. All right, so what we were looking at was stars. So let's go back to our timeline to make sure we're on the right one. We were on stars. So back to the node library. In stars right here, we want to put a glow. So let's take the glow node and just put it right here. Let's take the feed from the stars. Make sure you're grabbing the right thing. Feed it into the glow. And remember that some PC users might be able to just shake this right here. But I think that it doesn't work like that on the Mac. You have to actually grab it and do this part manually. All right, let's go back to the color view and the timeline view. We've already got, now we've got a glow. Let's open this up for the stars layer. Let's go to the render view. We want to see what that one looks like. So right now the glow is default in RGB and an alpha of 255. And so it doesn't have any glow on it yet. So let's just take the intensity and take the intensity up to 3. And you can just do this by grabbing and dragging. So it's 1.9, not enough yet. Grab it, drag it. 3, maybe 4.4. All right, let's just take a look at that. I think it's fine. I'm not really seeing it. Let's push this. We remember 4.4. Let's push it all the way up. So now it's glowing, but I think that it's because it's a single line. We're not getting a really good effect on it. So let's take this down to back down to the 4 or 5 area. All right, and let's just go back to our node library and see what other things we can put on here. So let's put a blur on it too, because I think that the blur is going to take the glow to a new level. So let's take the blur and put the blur right here. Let's feed the glow into the blur back into the composite, and go back to the timeline, go back to your color view. And so now we're going to take this blur and just take the blur up 1. Remember, we're still in the render view, so watch what's happening. Just take it up 1 or 2. There we go. So it took a while for it to respond. I think that's too much. Bring it down. Bring it down a little bit. Bring it down a little bit more. Oh, hold on. Grab it, just bring it down just a little bit more. A little bit, it's still too much. You want it to be somewhat sharp. All right, so so it went from 0.7 to 1.2, and that was a lot. So let me just drag it and bring it down just a little bit. 0.8. Still not enough. So let's take it to 1. 1.4. All right, now we're going to click this and do it manually. So now I'm just going to take it to 1.1. Enter. Let's just take it up to 1.2. 1.3. All right, no, 1.2. All right, that's okay. Let's take a look at what it looks like frame by frame. And remember that you can't play this if you're in the render mode. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the F key and go backwards to keyframe. And we're just going to see what it looks like. Frame by frame. You know, I think it's okay. One thing that we may want to do, we're using the star color, the spinning star color. So let's see what other options we have just for the color itself. We want to see it, so I don't really want to put a gradient on it. Maybe we want to brighten it up by just making it a little more white. And the only way we're really going to see what this looks like is if we render it. So let's save this and make a movie. All right, so this is a .move. It's going to an MPEG-4. Let's just pick QuickTime. It's going to frame 1. We don't want it to go past 180. So let's just do to 180. 1280 by 720. Output file format. Doesn't say where it's going. It's probably going to go in that folder that I have. So let's just say OK. And it's not, it's asking me for a path. Hold on. Let's just leave it at H.264. Oh, I see. So we want it to go to, I'm just going to put it on my desktop. We can change that later. It's going to have a weird file name. All right, I do not know where it went. Let's try this again. pixie dust on the desktop. Or it's not showing up. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. All right, let's just see what this looks like just in the regular mode here. All right, so I think that's looking good just as my base animation. So I'm going to close the glow and close the blur. So what I would do is I would look at my composite and I would say, I'm going to turn my arc back on just for a moment. And I'm going to just, on this arc layer, I could actually plan this out. So on the arc layer, I could say with any particular, it doesn't matter what color, but you could say, you want exploding stars in certain various places. Like if Louisa, if you have your orb like hovering right there, you might want 1 or 2 exploding stars right here, and then maybe 1 as you're going out. So you don't want to have them everywhere. And remember, you do have a variety. You have 3-point, 4-point, 5-point, 6-point stars, and they can be spinning. Remember too that instead of just the little pieces of pixie dust, to make a variety, make sure that on any particular frame that you have, and this is just general pointers, that you have a random variety of places where the pixie dust is appearing on the stage. And so this is good. I think that if when you plan this out, you've got the arc, and you've already done your dust, so you can put your pixie dust, your exploding stars in there first, so that when you do the pixie dust behind it, you know that you're not covering it up, you're not obliterating it. So this is a really good example of using several different nodes on one layer, keeping your layers really tight, work cleanly. The challenge right now is that this pixie dust layer right here this is going to take me a bunch of time. So remember that I'm all the way out here at frame 180, and so if I just go like this to frame 161, that orb is right here, and that when I go 2 frames out, he's almost off the stage. Now he is off the stage, but like I said, just because he's off the stage doesn't mean you don't have pixie dust to draw. You've got at least 8, 10, 12, maybe even 16 frames of all the pixie dust that's going to be falling here to end the shot. And so this is going to comprise just work, but as long as you're following the rules of dissipating it, spreading it out, random. So let me make sure I'm on, on the arc layer. And I'm going to put this just right here. So remember, the key is random. You don't want to make the pixie dust look mechanical at all. Your job as an artist is to make sure that it looks like magic, and then make it feel like magic. It go back and forth and left and right and up and down. So let me spend just a moment or two getting that. So I'm going to turn my arc layer back off again. And I'm on pixie dust. And because I'm on dust pixie_1, I want pixie_1. And I've already got this frame locked in. So let's go. And I think that I mentioned this last week, but sometimes what I like to do is, and I did mention this last week, I'll do just a few frames to start the keyframe. And then I'll go out, I'll use my keyboard greater than sign to just go to the next keyframe, because the dust here, dust 1, is the brush, right? And I don't have any I do have a transparency on that, and I believe I have an alpha on that too. So on the dust 1, whenever you have an alpha added to that color, it shows up like as a different display. But right now, what I'm going to do is this is the busy work. There's not a lot of thinking right here, but I want the pixie dust to be in the cloud, and then each one of those little red dots from the frame before it has to fall downwards. And you don't have to be like completely scientific about this. If you are scientific about this, it could make it mechanical, and you want a sense of magic. But basically, the cluster of pixie dust has to fall, and they can change. You know, they can turn into little circles. The idea of the shimmer happening is that on one frame, this little guy right here disappears, and then on the next frame he comes back. And so the more pixie dust you have, the better, the more magic. I'm going to do one pass, just doing the small ones. You know, I've got a lot out here, so I can start dissipating this a little bit. And remember, I'm being a little bit sloppy. I don't want the little scratchy mark. I do not want it to make it look like this is a digital stylus. I want to make it look like it's magic. I want to make it look like it might be drawn with a pencil. You want your onion skin on so that you know that each one of these little pieces of pixie dust is not on top of any of the other ones. And so, you know, again, a greater than sign that sets the keyframe. There should be a lot more right behind the orb itself. And then I would go back. And so I'm going to go back here now. And something strange is happening. I think I used the wrong color. I think I was doing this dust color just for that little bit. So just to remind yourself, stay clean. Don't make the mistake like I did. I just used that dust color for those few frames. Now for this pass, I'm going to have a bunch of little circles. So I'm going to do the circles. Now I just use the G key, a little circle, G key, little circle. Skip a frame, have the circle come back. To another keyframe out, have the circle come down. Right? Next frame, have it go a little further. Next frame, further. Next frame. So now the cloud is gone, just turn it into a dot. So now let's just take a look at that as it plays. Do you see the little dot? So now do all the dots all at once. So, and you don't need too many. Maybe you need one little one right here. Just draw a little dot. Next keyframe out, drop it down. Next down, this one, have it right here. Next one, a little dot. Next one, and I'm doing keyframes, so I'm using the G key, and there's an open space right there. This one, let it go away. So now I've got two little dots. Play. All right, so now let's start on this frame and do another dot. I could see the onion skin showing me dots. Let's put this one right here. This is a big dot. Drop it. Next key, drop it. Drop it. You can copy and paste if you want, but it's easier just to draw it. Yeah, you don't want to copy and paste, just draw it. So now we're in the cluster, and this should be the last little dot. So you know what might be fun right here is to go off topic just a little bit, and this little dot explodes. So let's do a 4-point star. Next keyframe. And remember that in order for this to read, it can't move very much. So this one's just a short one and it's on 2s. All right, let's see if we can see what we did there. There, you see it? So now we've got layers of things happening. We did an exploding star, a 4-point star right within the pixie dust layer itself. Oh my God, Billy, you're breaking all the rules right there. I think that you're just aware of that and you play it and you're happy with it and you know it's working, and then just keep going. So again, this pixie layer 1, you're gonna have, that's the bulk of your work. And what I would recommend, highly recommend, is to just do it in steps. Go through the whole thing, set your keyframes, because right now I don't even have my keyframes set. So right now I want to make sure on pixie_1 and set all of your smaller pixie dust, because that's the thing that's going to take the most time. And you've got your onion skin on, just drop, everything gets dropped. All these have to live for a few frames or it'll just look like it's incomplete. It won't look like magic. Cluster a lot more of the little tiny particles, pixie dust particles right behind, oops, right behind. And then, so now you're using your greater than sign key, and then just do all the little pixie dusts first. This is going to take me an hour. This to go from frame 50 to frame 180, just drawing all these little goddamn little pieces of magic, that's going to take me an hour. And then I'm going to go back in. Oops, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. And from my arc layer, do the medium size, the bigger ones, the open circles. I would save the little spiraling ones for last. And you know, it might be fun to have the spiral grow. So right here from my key, if I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to do a little spiral, kind of looks nice. You could have that grow. And what I might do is because if you did this on your pixie dust layer with the pixie dust 1 color, I think that would be fine. But if you wanted to protect it and to make sure that it was going to work like you wanted and to work correctly, you may want to put one more layer in there of just spiral. You could just say, you know what, let's take a look at what a spiral looks like. A new drawing layer, spiral, S-P-I-R-A-L, add and close, and with the same exact, so let's see where it landed. It's under the stars. It's between the stars. So it's in an okay place. So let me turn my arc off. All right, so we're talking about spiral. And so right here is a decent place. We're on a keyframe, we're on 2s, that's fine. So like we just said, let's make a new color. That new color is spiral. In the whole world of 2D special effects, let's just pick something obnoxious like, yeah, pink or something, just to start with. In the 2D world of 2D special effects, it's usually a bright color against a black background. If I do this, can you see what's happening? Can you see what's happening? Or does Zoom pick this up? Do you see anything happening?
Yeah.
How many of you have a Mac? Is anyone working on a Mac? So Louisa, on your keyboard, hit Control, Option, Command, and the 8 key. Control, Option, Command, and then hit the 8 key. Is it working? So you could try that. It's a little weird. What I've done is I just reversed the colors. I believe in the first iteration of this, it was called Halloween mode. And I don't recommend that. It's an option. It's weird. And remember, you're not allowed to say the word weird without saying weirdly. All right, so let's do a spinning spiral. We're on 2s, we're in the spiral, we're in pencil, spiral color. Oh, this spiral color has an alpha on it already. So that's just something to pay attention to. You can see it in the color palette. All right, let's zoom in here just a little bit. Looks like we have an open space right here. So let's just have a spiral. And remember, what we're doing is we're dropping a pixie dust. So it's got to fall a little bit every frame. So, but this one's going to spin and grow at the same time. And I know what Isaiah is thinking. Ooh, I'm going to spin and grow and explode it. Right? So let's spin. Let's start here. We're going to do a little spiral. We're going to go 2 keyframes out. We're going to take the spiral and we're going to start in a different place. And we're going to make it look like it's spinning. So in order to get this to read correctly, you need at least 4 drawings right here so that your audience can see what it's doing. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to spin it. And then on this frame, I'm going to grow it just a little bit. So I'm going to start at the top. Now it's getting a little bigger. Now in this one, I'm going to start on the left side, grow it just a little bigger. And it looks like I've got it moving to the left, which is fine. There can be a little drifting. We are talking about air. So now I'm going to go here. I'm going to make it a little bigger. And I'm going to start at the bottom, make it a little bigger. Start here on the right side, make it a little bigger. And now we'll explode it. So on this frame right here, what we're going to do is we're going to have a circle and a 6-point star. And we are on our own spiral layer, so we can do whatever we want. So let's just drop this just a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry. Just a little bit, because it is exploding. And then the tendrils go out. Now they stop. Now it stops dropping. I'm going to try to keep it. I got a 5-point star. They continue upwards. It stops. Remember, it stops dropping. Oh, I did that on the wrong. So I got to add a frame here. All right, and then on this one, we're going to have more space between the position, the last position, and a little wiggle is fine. They don't have to be perfectly straight lines. Oh my God, they're all going to explode again. I am 3-point stars right at the end of all 3 of these. Stop it. It's that middle mouse on my stylus. We're on 2s. So at this point, you can kind of see what I'm doing, right? Technically, what I'm doing is having fun with it. So I'm going to continue this for another couple drawings. Continuing to get a little bit further away from the position of the last exploding pixie dust. And I can see just from my onion skin that I've got 3 frames, 3 drawings, 6 frames. So I want one more, because remember what we talked about is a beat is 8 frames. A beat is 1/3 of a second. And so even though I've got 4 drawings, it's only a beat. This is only 1/3 of a second. Oh my God, the little exploding becomes pixie dust. So we started out with a spinning spiral, it exploded, and now it's becoming pixie dust. Kind of looks like fireworks, huh, Louisa? What do you think? Is it going to look stupid or is it going to look okay? All right, so,
It's going to look okay.
you know, this is a lot of work. I know that. And again, you don't want it to actually look too much like fireworks because it's supposed to just be magic. It's supposed to be pixie dust. So I would not do this except maybe one time. Just this one time. I mean, this is a lot of work. I've spent just 10 minutes in this demo just doing this one silly little thing here. And this is now pixie dust. So these have to fall. And I'm going random. I'm just going left and right and up and down. I'm going to zoom out from this a little bit. I want to go left and right, up and down. So that you're not tempted to try to cheat yourself and end up making it look just a little bit too mechanical. All right, so there's just one little thing I want to mention right here, and that is that on the arc layer, I talked about dissipating. And the idea here is that you want, oh, I don't want that little scratchy thing that the idea of dissipating is that these things, like you could think of them as the magic is dying out. And so if you're doing this randomization thing, you don't want to have all the pieces fizzle out on the same frame. So you want a few of them to just keep lasting a little longer. And maybe on just the last frame, you're going to have one or two. And this is the beauty of just following along with the onion skin, is that it helps you think about the dissipation. So you can see that now I'm down to just 20. Now I'm just down to 10. Now I'm just down to 4 or 5. Now I'm just down to a couple on 2s. And you know, what we did is we started with a spiral spinning, it exploded, and then the ends of the explosion exploded. So the last thing I want to do is explode it again, because that would be kind of sort of obnoxious. So let's take a look at what we've got. We haven't even looked at it yet. I just spent 15 or 20 minutes doing the demo right there of all of these frames on a spiral. And I guess I trust myself enough that I haven't wasted time, that it's going to look okay. Let's see what it looks like. Save your file and play it. Oh, sorry, I started in the wrong place. See it? Let's take one more look at it. So it's there. I wouldn't do a spinning, exploding spiral except once, right? And I think that one thing that you can think about here is if we just go to like this frame right here, this frame right here, this frame is looking pretty good. If I switch over to the render mode, it's going to show me what it's going to render like. I think just looking at this artistically, I need a couple of things. One thing that I would like to do maybe is talk about this dust layer. And let's just go back to this frame and just think about it artistically, aesthetically. I think that this cloud, it's not it's not dissipating enough. It looks too much like a digital brush. And so on my, so I'm on the dust 1 layer here. But what I can do is I can add a dust 2 layer to it, just really quickly. So I'm gonna, even though I'm on the same layer, I'm gonna use a different color. And for this one, what you can do is to remind yourself what you're doing is take this and drag it, this new color, and drag it under the dust, and then rename it dust 2. And it didn't pick up all of that. For some reason, it decided to give me a new color. That's weird. Okay. I haven't seen Toon Boom do that before. That's strange. Yeah, this color right here is strange. I'm going to delete it. Right click, delete this color. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. That was strange. I don't know what's going on there. So I want to give this a different color. Right click on the blue. So I'm going to give this one, the dust is like this beige color right here. And I don't want to go too different. So let's just push this red up into the corner to make it just a little brighter. Let's pick our brush. Let's go put our palette away. The brush is remembering that we were on this cloth. But let's see what happens if we, let's find the little the cloth color, brush on cloth. So it's right there. It's like underneath the fuzzy. But what we want is something just a little lighter. I don't want the Conti. Let's see what this textured wash looks like. And out here where it doesn't matter, with a brush that's 250 pixels, you know, oh, that looks okay. You see what I did? Let me repeat that, because I'm in the render mode right here. And so I'm just going to draw it. You see what's happening? And I'm pushing really hard on my mouse. And then I let up, and that's good right there. So I'm not going to press so hard, and I don't need this on this frame right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go G key. I'm on the dust layer with the brush, with the textured wash, with the dust 2 color, which is fine. These are right next to each other. That reminds you that these two belong on the same layer, or you could put dust 1A if you wanted. But I don't need it right here. I mean, I could put it right there, but it's going to show up. I am in the render mode, so it might take a moment for it to bleep in there. I'm going to zoom in with the 2 key on the keyboard, and I'm just going to give myself so that it doesn't look like it's a shape. I want the cloud to just be wispy. Wispy is a good word to think about. So I'm just kind of, just a little bit is all I need. I am in the render mode. So what I'm trying to get rid of is the appearance of those lines. Now, I might have done that just a little bit too much. I think I only need a little bit right there. And so I'm just going to get this just a little bit. I'm going to decrease the size of my brush just a little bit. Maybe a little bit more. All right, again, I've got my finger, my left hand on the G key, so I'm just going, and I'm just kind of making it a little bit wispier. It's subtle, but that's okay. What I'm trying to get rid of is like the look of tendrils. I want it to look like dust. All right, and remember, we do have a transparency node on this layer, and I am in the render mode, so we won't be able to play this. I'm just looking at each frame aesthetically. And you can see that I've got my pixie dust starting to happen in there. I need a little bit more right here. You know, and I've got that blur on this one right here, which was it wasn't that one, it was stars. So now when I'm looking at this, I'm at 160%. I might want to take this down a little bit. I might want to take the blur down on this star just a little bit. Oh wait, make sure I'm on the right layer. I'm drawing on the dust. So I see I've got these little gutters. Now I want to make sure that I get rid of the gutters. So I could play with a couple of different things. I'm just touching very lightly. I could bump this back up again and see what happens if I've got just a really light, fat brush, which seems to be working okay. And I'm just touching very lightly on my keyboard, on the stylus. All right, and so this is a good place to kind of adjust this, because if I'm using this textured wash or whatever you think you might like to use, and you do this little step correctly, you may not have to draw so many little pieces, so many little dots of pixie dust. The idea is just to hint at where the, you know, and this would be like all the way from last week for our first step. Like right here, now we're still on step 1, right? And this is where the pixie dust is going to land. And so now that we're out here on the timeline, we're at frame 54. If you do this part correctly, then what you're doing is you're actually creating a placeholder for where the pixie dust is going to be. And you don't have to draw quite so many of them. And I'm being subtle here. You don't want this to be your whole effect. I think the effect is this little guy right here. This pixie dust layer all by itself. When we go back and look at the Cinderella piece, you know, she might still be playing. I don't know where she is. That was all hand drawn. They didn't do any of this. This brush work right here that was done at the Disney studios in the 50s and onward for magic like this, that was all done just with little dots. The assistant animators and the animators were drawing just thousands of little dots. And the ink and paint artists had to go back in there and recreate every single one of those pencil marks religiously to every single dot with white paint on cells. All right, so you can see that I'm right here, so I would still have a bunch more to do. You know, oh, that was weird. Let me Z out of that. That was an anomaly. I've never seen that before. Did you see what happened? I just clicked my mouse once and it made a perfect dot, a great big dot. That was weird. In my experience, that is not going to cause a problem. I've seen other things that are indicative of a Toon Boom file breaking. That would be new for me. All right, so now, so you can see I'd see all the brush marks that I made last week on this part, because I think I was just trying to go a little too fast. And so I want to try to make it look more organic. This little textured wash is a 360 pixel brush. And I'm doing it in the render mode so that I can very carefully see that I'm not getting myself into in any aesthetic trouble. I want to indicate here that I want this to disperse. So I want to go backwards a couple of frames and make sure that the idea of dispersing, remember, I don't want this to look like it's a ribbon. I don't want this to look like it's a piece of cloth that's trailing behind. And again, I think that logically, literally, what I should have done was this in one of our first steps last week, but that's okay. All right, do I have any questions from anybody? I keep saying that the same things over again, hoping that they'll sink in. You know, the ideas of random and dispersing and falling and air are all things that you have to keep in mind when you're doing a shot like this. When you're animating a character doing a walk cycle, you really have to, who is that character? What are they thinking? What is their inner voice? An animator always thinks about all those strange little things about the character when they're animating a character. It's not going to look correct. All right, I'm just seeing where I am here. And I'm seeing that the stuff I did last week is just kind of ending in a couple of frames. All right, and again, I think the one little phrase I'd like to end with today is the same one that I ended with last week. Remember what that was? Anybody remember?
That if you're doing it wrong, if you're not having fun or something along those lines.
Yeah, but say it in the positive.
Oh, you're doing it. If you're having fun, you're doing it right.
Yeah, if you're doing it right, it should look easy. Right. So don't spend a huge amount of time on something if you're unsure about it. You know, right now I know that I still have work on the dust to get the dust off the screen right here. So that's not done. But I'm very confident that I know what to do. I can use dust one, make sure that I make a mental note of what brush I was using, and pick the right color, and follow the arc and get it off right now. In the regular OpenGL mode, my shot looks like this right now. And so this first part's looking really good. It's just that I've got this filling in this pixie dust layer right here. Well, let's just start at the beginning. Filling in this orb right here, dust one to the orb. That's going to take me about another 10 minutes or so, or less. And then the pixie dust layer right here. This is going to take me 2 hours. And it shouldn't take you any longer, right? Just because I'm doing it and I know where I'm going and what direction I'm moving in, and I'm not going to waste any time because I know it's working and I'm going fast. It's going to take me an hour and a half or 2 hours. And it should take you about the same amount of time. Sometimes when a teacher does a demo, they do it really fast. And you're like, oh my God, and the students have to figure it out. They have to parse it out. They have to figure out what went wrong with their file or what have you. And the teacher can assume that it's going to take you 4 hours. But this pixie dust layer right here, for you, unless one or the other of you had made your actual arc way too long, John,
Yes.
don't make the arc too long or you'll be doing pixie dust for 4 hours straight, right? So this is going to take me 2 hours, and then I don't want to do any more spirals, and then I'm going to have the fun part is going to be doing these exploding stars. So if I see just right here in my timeline, by the way, when I shake my mouse like this, does my mouse get bigger for you? So yeah, that's I like that about the Mac OS. I also like this, but you can't see this. You see what I'm doing? No, nobody can see what I'm doing. Louisa, you have a Mac?
Yep.
Yeah, so hit the control key, the far left key on the keyboard, hold the control key down and use the middle mouse button. It's called screen zoom. And it is like the most useful tool in a classroom because I can zoom in on like 10 pixels. And on Zoom, it doesn't pick it up. But it is on a Mac, it's like it's like the thing I use all the time. It's like, what am I looking at? It doesn't increase the pixel depth, but if you're doing a demo in a classroom and you want to say, I want to go to this tool, and you're like, I want to go to this tool, you can go into like 4,000%. But yeah, this mouse thing is really great. If you're doing it right, it should look easy. If you're doing it right, you should be having fun with it. And so once again, let's just look at what I've got in terms of my shot. So what I'm seeing is that I got a lot of pixie dust up in here, a lot of small pixie dust. Yes, Louisa.
At the end of the class, could you check the conversion that I did for my path? Because I did what you suggested to make like
Okay.
a little extra in the between. So
Okay.
I just added in my comments, my original post.
Where did you put it?
It's on in the comments, the
Oh,
comment.
oh, I see what you did. Okay. Yep, that looks great. That looks great.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so you all have a whole bunch of work to do. And I showed you the examples from last week. And I showed you this, which is incredible. I really do not think that you want pixie dust going for, if this was done on 12 field animation paper, this would be 4, 8, 16. This would be almost 20 inches of a trail for pixie dust. And if this is going to take you forever, right? I don't recommend you spending 40 hours just doing pixie dust like this. But if you're the animation studio and you've got this as the title sequence for your film, and your director says, boy, I really want the pixie dust to linger for 10 seconds as Tinkerbell comes into the shot. All of these, so it's not just 10 seconds, it's 2,000 pieces of pixie dust times 10 seconds, which is 240 frames. So that's 20,000 little dots, which is fine. If you're getting paid, you know, but for here, just don't make the tail of the pixie dust too long. Don't make it too short. Just this is a good example because you can see that there's little shining stars. Those little stars are everywhere. That is one option, that instead of just a dot or an exploding star, that some of them are actually just 4-point stars, like it's a lens flare. There's lots of different options. In this example right here, you can see that the animators might have used a glow, or this is just an illustration, so it's probably done in Illustrator, but there's a glow behind it. And then on her little wand, they're a little brighter. So there's either a less glow or no glow. In this example here, there's just a few of them, you know, and you can be sparse if you want, as long as that it's clear, as long as the pixie dust is clear. You know, there's a lot of them right there. You know, this one is straight from Peter Pan, and there's a big density, and then there's 4-point stars on top of it. This is an 8-point star right there. Look at this one, OMFG. Did I say that correctly, Isaiah? OMFG. And whatever, now you compute, you're like going, okay, there's 1,500 dots that make up the pixie dust just for this one frame. And if she falls and this lasts for 4 seconds, well, you just better hope you're getting paid. You know, when Peter hits her little butt, there's 3,000 dots right there. You know, no wonder Tink is mad. I should put this on our board. You know, that's a lot. And there's yellow, there's white in front and yellow behind. Oh my God. Ah. All right, so you all have work to do. You should know, you should have your direction. Javon, you have your plan, right? You know what you're doing. Anybody have any questions? Nope. Okay, do it. Go make it happen. Make it awesome. Remember that this could be the first thing that people see in 2022 for the spring show. And, you know, if all goes as well health-wise, that we are looking to be back on ground for spring semester. Nobody knows. You know, wild things can happen. The whole world could perish by the end of the year, who knows? But if the spring show is on ground, then this pixie dust and everything you do for this class could be actually in the spring show. So keep that in mind. All right, we'll see you 9 o'clock next week. Welcome back, Javon. All right, and we will see you next week. The recording of this will be up in the classroom in about 2 hours or so. Okay, we'll see you, everybody.
Okay.
Ciao for now. Ciao for now.